natural areas can have a place in our city, but they must be planned thoughtfully with the well-being of the citizens and the environment in mind. I am in full support of improvements to our community, but I don't support growing just for growing's sake and to profit corporations that don't have a stake in our community. And I believe that if young people are to stay in Richmond and to help it grow, then we need to protect what makes it unique and valuable. And that's a lot of our natural areas that we have. Thank you.
Yeah, Philip, we've got some new members on the board, and I think we need to talk a little bit about, I don't believe that we can refuse a project because of the traffic. It's not allowed. No,
Well,
wait a minute now.
so,
Can you speak up? Can you repeat that, sir?
Yes, there's a problem with the planning and zoning in the fact that we cannot refuse, I don't believe, a project because of traffic alone. Do I think that you should be able to do it? Yes, but I don't think we can do it. Let's see what Philip has. He's the director here.
so, throw a couple things out. So, I think really what you're referring to is more zone change related than is project related. So what you have tonight, and they did bring a concept, but that's all this is a concept. So this is not actually the plan. This is just what they intend to do, which you can require. But what you have tonight is land that's already annexed into the city. And when land is annexed into the city, it is with the intent to develop that land into something else. It's not intended to remain agriculture, which is exactly what you just addressed in the previous case. So really what you're considering tonight is zone change, not so much project and traffic and density and things like that.
Yeah, but you need to consider it now.
Yes, and you take it into consideration, yes, that's correct. But what you will have, and the reason why I bring it up, what you will have, if you, whatever zone you go with, when the development plan comes back, they have to ask and request and apply for the subdivision of land. So that's when you see the plan, you see the density, as in how many lots, how many houses, those things, and you can deny that if you choose based on traffic, as in the density level. You see what I'm saying? Like, and so tonight,
Well,
what you
now,
have to
wait a
use-
minute. We cannot, when they come back and they say, we've already changed it to R2, is it? Yeah, R2 and R1C. If they come back and say that, and we already say they can do that, we can't say they have less density. We can't change that. See, that's where we've got hooked before, is we can't change that. Once they say, once we approve that, then you're stuck.
You can limit the density. You can impact the density, you can impact the lot layouts, you can impact the way in which the development flows, you can impact the
Sure,
subdivision.
but it's still 5 houses per acre.
Right, but you can limit that at development stage.
You know, I've been through this before, that what happens is, once you approve that, then they can build what they want to build as long as it's those stones. You cannot change the density on that. You can maybe decrease the number of houses,
That's the
and you
density.
can make more recreational
That's what the
space, and you can
density
do
is.
things like that, but you can't change that.
That's what the density is limiting the number of houses.
Yes, but it's very hard to do that at that point. And the other thing is that as far as traffic goes, I think it's too crowded out there anyway, but as far as traffic goes, we don't control the roads. It's all state roads. So I know that Philip would like to have new roads out there before this starts, and stop signs and lights and stuff like that, but we have no control over that, nothing at all. So that's a real problem if we approve it. If we don't approve it, then you got agricultural land that violates our comprehensive plan and should go on. So, but I see where everybody's coming from, that you've got 3 or 4 big developments out there, and already the traffic's terrible. It takes long periods of time to get through there. So, I mean, it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and I don't think this is gonna stop. I think it's gonna get worse.
So, so what
Not
we,
just here, all over the state.
what we really doing here tonight,
Is you're being
correct
asked-
me, correct, is just to take it from one step to the other, right?
Right, all you're
I mean,
being
we're
asked-
not here for no development, I mean, as far as they can start building anything like that.
No, it
Do
doesn't.
what?
Tonight, what you're
No,
being
not
asked,
necessarily, not necessarily,
Once you say R1C, it's R1C.
yeah,
They can do,
do anything we want to.
want
with
to.
it.
But
You've
I
been-
feel part
You've
of,
not been there.
part of our responsibility is planning.
right, and your plan calls for
I think we
residents.
should be able to say, I don't care,
But
when can
I'm,
I
what I'm
support this?
saying, we're just discussing tonight what they want to do with it.
I
Right.
know,
Can
but
I-
if you go ahead and change it to your residential, then we're trapped. And
I'm
we
not,
don't
look,
wanna be
here,
trapped.
here's what I'm saying.
Can I
I'm
have
not
one
saying that I'm gonna change it or anything. I'm just saying what we're discussing here tonight.
Right, and
That's all
just-
I'm saying.
at one point.
I'm not talking about developing or anything. I'm just saying what we discussing here tonight.
Right, and what you're being asked tonight is whether or not this zone change request complies with your all's comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
which is a planning document that you all took, I'm assuming, numerous amounts of months, if not years, to put together. And that comp plan, which is the basis of your all's planning decisions, whether or not a zone change is appropriate, is whether or not it complies with the comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan calls for this to be developed as residential land. That's not something my client or the applicant did. That's what the city of Richmond decided would be appropriate there, is residential development. And
Okay.
our development has way less density than what is possible on that acreage. There's 5-to-1 is 1,200.
Where do you live? You've not been there.
But what does that matter?
Excuse me. Hey, excuse me, sir. Let's just take one at a time. I know, but
Philip
let's
can-
just go
Philip
one.
can correct me
We
if
can
I'm
let
wrong.
you speak after he gets to.
Philip, do we meet the maximum amount of density that can go on that project? On
Are
that-
you saying, are you?
Are we at
5.1?
maximum density?
No, you're less, it appears.
Far less, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But even though it's supposed to, at some point in time, become residential, we don't have to accept the change right now. We can wait 10 years from now and see how the roads develop.
You can, but I would ask that if that's the position you're going to take, I would ask that you find tonight that it doesn't comply with the comp plan, so we have an understanding of why it wasn't approved. Because your comp,
But that's not true. I mean, it may,
that's the state law requirement.
I'm just
Mr.
saying, I don't
Attorney,
want to
if I may.
approve it now.
The only thing I would say in regards to what you're telling us is to encourage growth where current adequate infrastructure and amenities exist.
That's why it was annexed.
I'm not opposed to growth in the city, right? It needs to grow. It's good for our community. However, being from Richmond, I wouldn't want one of my family members backed up on exit 87 and get smacked by a semi-truck because we got traffic issues. Neither would you, neither would anybody in this room.
Right, and so that
So the only
traffic
thing I would
impact,
say, if I may, that's an issue that needs to be addressed or looked at, or we need to come up with a solution to this issue before, in my opinion, that we even, discuss this. So I just want you to know where I stand. And you're correct.
and I would
in
encourage you to
in-
petition your state government to come in and take care of these state roads. I don't,
Right, but
I
I
don't,
want you to
we-
know.
but we can't control what the state does and doesn't do with their roads. What we can control is what you all direct us to do with your comp plan. So
Yes.
we look at your comp plan, we see that you recommended residential. You're telling us you want that developed residential.
And I
You
agree.
have a
In
housing,
what time?
Huh?
In what time frame? In what time frame?
whenever it's annexed, which it's already been in.
In what time frame?
What do you mean in what
And
time?
what you want and what these people want.
Sure.
I've been on this board for 2 years, and I've never seen a turnout like this.
Sure. And that,
Time frame. Yes, it does require the state mandate, our comprehensive plan mandates it be that, but when is the time to do it?
well, when you adopted your comp plan, that's the time in which you recommended this to be residential. I can't argue with you. on that. That's your all's comp plan. That's what you've asked for in this area.
And I don't disagree with
Right.
that. What I'm saying is in the statement alone, your statement does not support what is actually happening, as it is today.
And I'd ask,
The infrastructure does not support.
well, that's why,
That's why
it is adequate out there for this development.
I mean, sir,
If you look at the traffic impact study that looked at the Barnes Mill, Hampton Way,
sir, if you're from here, then you understand the issue. That's all. It's an issue. It needs to be addressed.
Who paid for the traffic study?
if you have an issue with an engineer's traffic impact study, you can take that up with them, but I don't think who
Okay,
paid them matters.
You're not gonna answer that question, are you?
The applicant paid for it. But that doesn't-
Excuse me, can I say something?
it-
I think and I can understand everybody's feeling, but I think we're kind of getting out of order here and all around. We need to stay focused on what we're here for. Give everybody a chance to speak, but let's just do it in a manner to what we can be settled about it. Sir, spec your name and
I'm Billy Good. I live at 387 Adams Hill Drive. It's the very back of Old Town Estates. Was born there, lived there my entire life, and I've actually studied Will Green Lake personally that entire time. Been trying to figure some things out about it since I was young, because my daddy wouldn't let me eat the fish we caught out of there. But in my opinion, just one major thing that needs to be brought up is an actual environmental impact study on how it affects Will Green, because if you overlay a topo map on that right there, the lines draw holes in the property that go almost down to the level of the lake, and it doesn't necessarily drain out to there. It drains into the ground and comes out there. But that end of the lake is filling up with sediment, and I've picked up the garbage along the bank since I was a little kid. Every year when the water goes down, used to be fishing cups and beer cans, Pepsi cans, basketballs, stuff like that. And now it is every piece of garbage that you've ever seen strewn out in the middle of Hampton Way. When the garbage cans turn over on a windy day, they wash right down and they end up coming around, settling on our bank because the wind blows that direction. And it is a massive amount of garbage, but you've got other sediments building up, and it's actually filling the lake up back. And those are just problems that, somebody should address. They fixed the other end of the lake, and the county's made it all nice and stuff, but I think that somebody should actually hike it and look at it. And you all everybody said that guy's not knowing the property he's talking about for the density of the houses. I've been in construction since I was a little kid, and I'm in it now. I'm not against development. It's what gives us work. I didn't really want to see every blade of grass in Richmond, Madison County built on top of, but that land lays so crazy that when I was a kid, we'd had trouble hiking it early in the year. And if you put a topo map on that right there, and I saw one earlier today, the lines are so close together and the roads are not in any way shaped with the line. And it would have to be, to get any density like what they're talking about, any more than that, it would have to be built like the chalets down in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge or something, because the roads would be straight up and straight down in those little narrow lots. You can't build a house on that. If the house got to fit the lot, it'd have to be like the size of this stand right here to have a garage, that you drive out into. But that's something that these guys need to look at a little closer, I believe, because they've drawn that looking down on it from what information they had available, but they haven't really studied it, I would assume. But my main concern is the lake. I'd like to see that somebody actually tries to do an environmental impact study on it. When Reagan Taylor first took county office, I called him up. I said, "Hey, man, I know a bunch about Will Green Lake," and he told me the first $100,000 he got, he was going to do an environmental study on the lake. And I thought he was saying something stupid. Turns out he was really insulting me. When it come right down to it, it took me years to figure that out. But there's a lot of pollution that goes into that lake, and it doesn't need to be increased in any way. It needs to be decreased. And this property actually brings the lake right up to the city. I don't know what that matters in the world, but the tributaries to the lake run right through the city, and they come all the way from Sherman-Williams and Exide and all kinds of different places that make it a nice little cesspool for rotten garbage. And currently I can sit where I used to fish out on this rock, and where I used to cast and fish in normal level, and I've kept mark of the highs and the lows all these years. There's dirt piles now out in the middle of the water, and it's come in. I don't know. It used to go way back in between, Deacon Hills and Idlewild's on the other side, and now it just rounds out right there. And it's just filling up. And doing this development would add a massive amount of sediment to it. And, you know, something somebody needs to address in the future anyway. But this, the environmental impact on this development on the lake would seem to be prudent, in my opinion.
Okay, and thank you for that and all the rest of them, but I'd just like to say, Philip, correct me if I'm wrong on it. When we talking about the water runoff and everything, that's on down if it's approved, right?
That's correct.
And they have to come back and do, they got forever parking, or they got to put in so many basins to take care of the water and
Right,
everything.
and I mean-
But I understand what
And
you're
it doesn't
saying.
need to be held back.
Yeah.
We need flow on that end of the lake. That's the problem, is that, all these developments up and down, all the way up to the duck pond years ago, it's slowed down the water, so now Taylor's Fork doesn't have any real flow except when it rains, and the wind blows this direction all the time up the lake valley, so it's stagnant water. And it's what causes a lot of the issue. But I'm just, just pointing
Yeah,
out that this would make it a little worse, so somebody needs to weigh that in there. But that property, man, there's a couple holes or sinkholes, I don't know what you'd call them, but the drainage goes into those, and I don't know where it comes out. It comes out either in the Adams Cave structure or into the Wilgreen somewhere. But
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
like right now, that's how it's draining, and it's weird. It's a
Yeah,
strange piece of land. That's why nobody's developed it yet, is because it's
Yeah,
hard to develop. Now land is getting hard to get, so it makes it to where they can spend a little bit more money to develop it, and it's
Okay,
become
yeah.
lucrative.
But they will have to take
Oh, I
care of
understand.
all that when it's,
Sure.
if it comes to that
Sure.
point, right there. But yeah, I'm glad you considered that right there.
I'd like to say one more thing, the traffic y'all speak of out on Barnesville Road, I mean, that's a massive issue, and I-75 and all that, but the sheer number of people that cut across Hampton Way and use that tunnel to come out on Lancaster Road to do a shortcut instead of just getting off I-75 and going down and going on Lancaster Road like we always did before, those massive number of cars ain't got nothing to do with living out there. They're 2 to 1 the traffic, maybe 3 to 1 on that road, just people that are just cutting through there. And that's where the problems, those of us that live down in there are finding it's bad when you get to the other end. It's bad to turn on Lancaster Road, but it's the number of people that are using a shortcut. And I mean, Google tells you to. I do too. I've got to where any chance I get, I'll go ahead and drive down the bypass,
Yeah.
see what's going on there. But that's a part of the traffic issue too that I hadn't heard mentioned.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My name's Mike Conley. My family and I own M.A. Conley Construction, and I'm probably going to be taking a stance different from everybody else here. So Lone Tree started talking to us about 1.5 years ago, and these guys have been very slow, very methodical, very conscientious as they've moved along this past 1.5 years since I've been talking to them. And I think a lot of that really we can see and has already come up here with the traffic study. Whether we agree with that traffic study or not, there was an actual engineering analysis done, as well as the location that they chose this was actually in our comprehensive plan. So we made that, the city of Richmond made that plan, and we gave that, put it out there for everybody to look at. And these guys from out of town, yes, they came in and they used that plan to pick their locations. And as far as saying they're just somebody made a comment earlier, they're just some guys from Utah. They are some guys from Utah, but every subcontractor, every material supplier, those are all local people. Those are your neighbors. Those are my neighbors. So it's not just some guys from Utah. And we put this comprehensive plan out there showing this exact piece of property. And we've got the engineering analysis that shows the traffic patterns. So I think we need to really look at what we're doing and not just put a lot of emotion in this. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only additional point I'll make is obviously there's been a lot of questions about the traffic impact study and the traffic in general. If you all wanted to table it for a month, I'm happy to have the vision engineers that put that together come here and walk you through it and explain what they did and how they got to their conclusions.
I wanted to ask you, Philip, and Dr. Mill's correct. We cannot say no based on anticipated. I anticipated to get bad, so I say no. I can't do that. But the no can come from current situations. Does that make sense, what I'm asking you?
I think it does. What I think is important to consider tonight, okay, is you have land that is in the city, that is intended to be developed. So they have proposed some zones, some uses, which are tied to those zones. So really, what you have before you is the comprehensive plan that shows residential. Now, what you can consider is the actual residential zone they're requesting. Now, is that appropriate? Okay, so for example, R1C, which is our smallest single-family residential, and R2, which is our essentially duplex, two-family dwelling. Okay, we also have R1B, which is a larger lot and less density. We have R1A, which is a larger lot and less density. And then we have what someone referred to earlier, talking about like 5-acre tracts. Excuse me, that would be considered our estate tract. Now, that's not necessarily something we're supposed to do throughout like a 200 acres. So if you go down a path of postponing it or tabling it to allow additional information, that's certainly acceptable because you need additional information. If you go down the path of denial, it really needs to be more related to the specific request. Okay, not that it doesn't comply with or the comprehensive plan, it's just you're not comfortable with R1C. Or maybe you want to see some R1A tracts that are adjacent to these property owners, then go to the R1C. So it's less density and then increases as it goes to that R2. Because a lot of Hampton up through there is R2 already, and then you have the other tract that is R2 that's undeveloped. So those are the things to consider tonight necessarily. The timing of well, when do we say it can be a zone change? Well, that really, after it's annexed, that's when someone requests it, which is what's happening tonight. So the time is now. And I bring those things up because it's a lot more, it's very important, all right? So those are some options to consider. I hope I didn't rattle too much off, and if you want some information on those size lots, we can do that. Now, the only other thing is they're requesting R1C and R2, and that's their request, so you need to address it as that unless they're willing to amend it, you know, to larger lots tonight or something like that, or table it with maybe the intent to come back and show some progression from the lot sizes. Does that make sense?
Well, I think someone mentioned about going with downsizing or whatever. Was it you?
Yes.
Yeah. Mentioned about changing it to another, you know, downsizing or whatever. That's just what was mentioned. I'm not saying to do it, but that's just what you're talking about. That's what was mentioned on it. You go ahead.
Hi, Jennifer Browning at 100 Congleton Lane. I have 4 emails and letters from some of our neighbors who couldn't be here today but wanted to be represented. I won't take all the time for all of these because most of them are repetitive. But from James and Cindy Hardesty at 90 Congleton Lane, I would like to share something that I don't feel has been shared. They said that multifamily dwellings are inconsistent with the neighborhoods developed in this area. You only have to drive down the road to the apartment complexes at the north end of Hampton Way to see rows of trash cans that are never removed from the streets, multiple cars that are illegally parked on the street, lawns that are not maintained, piles of furniture that is being discarded and sits on the street for days or weeks if the sanitation refuses to pick it up. We do not want that in our area. The families living south of this track on Old Town Branch take pride in maintaining our properties. It never takes long for rental properties to turn into eyesores if they are not regulated and monitored. She also mentions that there is part of a Trans-America bike route in that area, and that people do use these roads for walking and biking every day. My kitchen window, I look out onto Congleton Lane, there are people walking and biking all the time. All the time. So please take that into consideration.
Thank you.
My name's Joe Robertson. I live on the little thing that comes out. My concern is they're not showing the cemetery.
That's on what?
They're not showing the cemetery. I can't see it. There's a cemetery easement, but they're showing lots where the actual cemetery is. Okay, all right. Well, that was my concern. And the other thing is, are they giving up units for their buffered land?
Giving what now?
Asking Philip. Are they giving up units for the buffered land, or are they figuring it off the total acreage?
Well, it appears they are counting the buffer in the
In the
overall
total
acreage.
thing, so the buffer thing's just,
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add is they obviously will not be able to build on the cemetery.
yeah.
There's
So
some options there, but,
of all the things I miss getting old, I miss my eyesight, and I just,
yeah, I'm the same way.
it's the first time I've seen it, so.
Thank you.
My name's Kenneth Nelson, and I live at 114 Adams Court in Old Town Estates. Lived there for 40 years. And someone told me one time that a genius can make a terrible decision if they don't have enough information. But an average Joe, average person, can make a great decision if they have a lot of information, or they have all the information. I personally don't think I've got all the information, or I don't know if all of you have a lot more information than you, but it scares me to death to think that this group may make a decision tonight that's going to affect the future of our community in Old Town Estates. There has to be some way that we do not make a final decision tonight. Give our neighborhood an opportunity to get together and talk over these things, identify the main issues that concern us, and perhaps have a lawyer to represent us that can do a professional job, which, you know, who knows all the ins and outs of what we need to do to make a good case for ourselves. I think that if we do make a decision tonight, it would be premature. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I would just urge this group to give us a little bit more time to consider it. The letter, I received your letter. Even though I'm retired, it seems like I'm busy all the time. And when I got the letter, it just made a rather bland statement that Hampton 210 LLC of Springfield, Utah, which means nothing to me, have requested the property to be rezoned in question. And it's currently agricultural, which, but anyway, it didn't, I wasn't calling the fire department and raising all kind of alarms over this letter. But, you know, if we had known that a decision was going to be made tonight, I dare say Old Town Estates could have gotten together and shared what information we have and could present a stronger case for our positions. A couple of other points. It seems to me like you need to take into consideration the way these meetings are conducted. I'm a little hard of hearing, that's an understatement. And the microphones, maybe it's just me, but anybody else have any difficulty hearing? I can't hear. Yeah, it's very, very low, and I can't really hear. You know, you're facing that direction, I can't hear what you're saying. And the visuals are difficult to follow, particularly if you're sitting where a couple of fellows are on the other side of the room, but it doesn't present that plot in context of Old Town Branch Road and the entire Old Town Branch subdivision. And one thing, I don't know if it's been emphasized or not, but, and it may have been, I just didn't hear it, that little exit road that goes into Old Town Estates, I know the stuff. Pardon? An easement. But can cars, not currently. I know I know the story behind the sale of that road. And it was done under kind of fraudulent conditions and speculations. But anyway, that really concerns me that traffic might pour eventually someday into this. Because it's getting hazardous to drive in Old Town Estates right now. Right now. And there's not that many people live out there. So that's a concern. And one gentleman was talking about the impact on the lake. If all those houses are built and there's a lot more runoff, and I may be repeating something that was already said, but the creek gets up over the road and you can't get in or out of Old Town Estates. And if someone had a heart attack or stroke or serious problem, that the ambulance or emergency rescue squad could not reach those people in time to save their life. And if that complex is built, there's no way that there's not going to be more water and more flooding over that road. Anyway, thank you for your attention.
Excuse me. Let him go on. We'll let you go on and speak there just a minute. Go ahead. Yes.
My name is Paul Adams, and I live at 108 Cedar Lane in Willimack subdivision. I would just like for you gentlemen to remember a few things that's happened already. Number one, we've got like 500 housing units over on Tate's Creek. We've got 500 at Goggins and Barnes Mill. That's already been approved. We've got another 100 over on Crutcher Pike for single-family units. We've got another unit that's going to be developed right behind Willimack subdivision for about 114 homes. So how many homes does this actually add up to? And we haven't even seen the effect of what's happening with that because it's not complete. So now we want to add this to it? And my estimation, if we have like 5.5 units per acre, we're going to have what? When they have a duplex, that's 10 families on an acre, correct? Okay, if you do 100 acres, that's 1,000 people, right? Okay, if you do the single, it's only 500, but that's 1,500 people. So you figure that's a family unit, right? So you got a car for 2 people. That's 3,000 cars a day over there behind Hampton. I mean, you just can't get out onto Barnes Mill. You got one traffic light. And to get to that traffic light, you've got to turn down and then turn back up. And that's your only option out when you're coming towards Lexington. So you need to, I wish you gentlemen would just consider what we're doing here. Because, you know, we have got so much that's already been approved and not developed, and yet we want to approve more. I mean, we can't even turn left at Goggins Lane coming into town,
We-
you know?
You know, but you right,
Pardon?
but you're right, but you know, a lot of them do come just to get the process started, and we don't know when they're gonna do it. We've got
Yeah, but
land
we-
now, and
but I
we
mean,
don't know.
but-
Here's, let me say this. You said something about housing. Now, we have some people come and want more houses. They just want houses.
Well, we've got houses already approved.
No, I'm talking about houses to be built. I mean, they say don't build apartments. We want more homes, single homes built.
Right, well, we've already approved 2 of those,
Well,
at least.
but to tell them, you know, you gotta start now, it could be a money crunch for them. We don't know.
Yeah, well, the one that's on Crutcher Pike, I mean, they couldn't have put an entrance in a worse place because it's at the bottom of 2 hills. It's just an accident waiting to happen. But we don't consider these things. Because
See, we
that's,
don't have anything to do with that on Crutcher Pike.
I understand that, but it affects the whole area out there.
It affects all around, from one
Yeah.
end of Richmond to the other.
And I mean, we can't get into town now half the time. And, you know, trying to get to the interstate like on Thursday and Friday night, forget it. It's going to be at least 3 to 4 lights.
You know, and I agree with you 100%. I live on the other end, and you try to come off of Irvin Road into town.
Yeah.
They are all the way back out past Sperling Trailer Park.
But
trying
at
to get
least
in
you've got
town.
at least a double lane you're coming in on, too.
Yeah, but when you get up there to that corner, I mean, it's bottlenecked right
Well,
there.
just think of what our problem is. We only have a single lane.
Well, right now, anywhere we go in Richmond, you're gonna have traffic.
But all I'm at,
Listen, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what we've even asked for traffic study. Well, you know, here's what I can, I'm not trying to be smart, here's what we sent out, and I've talked commissioners. Why won't you just put a sign up and say, we don't want nothing else in Richmond? We don't want, look, we don't want no more jobs, or anything, and I understand what you're saying about the schools, but that's not left up to us about the schools. We can't do anything about it. Huh? Look, we haven't made up our mind about anything. We want to listen. That's what we want to do. We haven't made up our mind about anything.
well, the reason they're asking that question, however, is because it seems like every time we go to these meetings, it's already a done deal.
No, it's not a done deal.
Well, I would hope not.
It's
All
not a
all
done
we're
deal.
saying is, can't we at least hold off on one project that hasn't been approved yet, and maybe put it in later?
You know, if you said it was a done deal, we wouldn't even have a meeting.
Well,
I mean, truly, if it's a done deal, we wouldn't send no letters out to anyone to come up here. We want to hear what you have to say.
well, show us that you can turn it down then. Thank you.
Excuse me, and I know everyone speak, but we let this one be the last one.
My name is Barbara Huntsinger. I live at 132 Allen Douglas Drive in Milford Estate. I am an employee for the Madison County Transportation Department. I'm an aide on the school buses. And I will tell you right now, you might not worry about the traffic, but you do need to worry about the schools. You do this plan right now, you're going to have over 500 residents there, which are going to have kids. Which means you're going to have to build more schools, a whole lot more schools. You need a whole lot more teachers, and you need a whole lot more bus drivers. We are already short on bus drivers, aides, and everything, and we need buses. We only allow so many per year or whatever it is. But this is very important. You don't want to worry about the traffic, that's one thing, but you better start worrying about your kids. I had 80 kids on my bus to take home today. My bus only holds 82. So that's a lot of kids. And these schools are busting at the seams. They can't take any more. and you're going to put that many houses up, you're going to have about 500 to 1,000 kids or more, just in that area. So we need to consider the kids. Well, you don't want to consider the traffic? Consider the kids. Think about it. Because that's going to be what your main problem is going to be. You're building a school right now in Garden Lane. That will be full before you get done with it. You're going to have to start building another one, just for this one here. Think of how many kids go to one school. There isn't that many. Our kindergarten school only holds 500. We already got that many in there. So you're going to have to think about that. That's a very important thing to worry about. Your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids. I got 12 grandkids and 12 great-grandkids. So doggone awesome. That means more teachers and everything. More drivers, more aides, more buses, more everything. Think about that. I thank you very much.
Ma'am, thank you. And I'm a monitor too on the school bus, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Wait, then you come up here. You can come around.
Were you getting ready to adjourn the meeting?
No, come on, since you up here, come on.
Okay. My name's Gene
No,
Higginbotham.
we wasn't gonna adjourn it, right?
Pardon?
We wasn't gonna adjourn it, we just.
Okay,
come
that's
on.
what I was getting ready to say.
No,
I mean,
we
if
weren't
it's a
gonna
matter of
adjourn it.
time, then
No, we weren't
you're
gonna
going down
adjourn
the
it.
wrong path, yeah.
No.
But I've been in these meetings where there's controversial, there's a lot of this, I've seen it more packed than this.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and if this map would have been passed out to the residents along with our letter, I say this, they'd be going out the front door, the people would be tonight. But what I keep hearing when I come in here to these controversials, I hear somebody come up here, and they say, well, your comprehensive plan says this, and your comprehensive, according to your, and it's an argument, but I feel like it's almost a threat to you all that they're bringing up that, it's in your comprehensive plan, so you have to do what I'm saying, And so if there's a problem with your comprehensive plan, then you need to look at that and try to do something about that when people can come up here and continually argue with you and almost threaten you that your comprehensive plan is, they're saying like they have the right to do what they're doing according to your comprehensive plan. Maybe they do, but if you're seeing controversial issues come up constantly because of the comprehensive plan, then maybe something needs to be done about that plan, is what I'm trying to say, for one thing. But another thing, so on the R2, I got a question. On the R2, is that like duplexes? Is that what that is? Okay, that's what I thought.
Duplexes.
So I can't see it back in there. If you wanted to, and again, like somebody else said, I've seen these pass through and then they come back and they don't get changed. They end up being exactly what this is right here. And I'm just saying that, it needs to be turned down completely tonight. And if they want to come in here and, I'm sure everybody in here would be all for 5-acre tracts or whatever, which is maybe a little ridiculous, but I think something else, considering the properties that are adjacent to these and the traffic issues. I know that's something you don't want to hear about, and that's not your problem. But when you have a bottleneck down there at the bottom of Old Town Branch or Congleton Lane into that tunnel, that's a huge problem down there. And the problem started when they opened it up from Hampton Way in through Congleton so they could, because they were going to put the 6-lane tunnel, the 6 lanes of interstate through. That's why that was all only opened up to begin with. We could have a way out of there while they shut the tunnel down. So that was the mistake to begin with, is opening that road up without an outlet there. But again, there is no other outlet out of there. There's only the end toward Hampton Way, and then there's the way out at the 1-lane tunnel, the bottleneck. And maybe it's a problem or not, I don't know, but it looks like it's a huge problem as far as bottleneck goes. Thank you very much.
Well, go ahead and say something. I want to say.
Short, sorry. Robin Carey. I live in Willimack subdivision. I work for the school system. And so I travel that road because I do go to Kirksville Elementary frequently, several times a week. Hampton Way, Congleton Lane. I wasn't clear on where the transportation survey was done, but if it was done with those two lanes, there's not a huge amount of traffic on there. It is a cut through, but once you get to Lancaster, that's where it's impacted. There's a huge, and traffic on Lancaster, they drive 65, 70 miles an hour. There's a lot of traffic on Lancaster because they're using that as a cut through to get to the interstate. Then I come back through to pull out on Barnes Mill, and you can take a risk to pull out on the on Barnes Mill, or you turn and go down to the light. 75, frequently, if you will look at the ramps on 75, it is backed up almost nearly to the interstate, north and south. Certain times of the day, it's the backup of traffic on the ramps is, if you don't plan ahead, you're on top of that before you know it. There's going to be a terrible accident there. Traffic coming off, it's all backed up because they want to turn near Steak and Shake. So I guess I don't completely understand why we say that's the state's problem. That's already kind of been mentioned, so I won't go into that. But I guess I don't understand, too, we say these properties are annexed into the city. And then, as I've heard tonight, then we have to do something about them. That's the same thing that's happened on Goggins with the sports facility. You know, terrible land there. It was not good land. There's huge sinkholes there, but we're going to build a sports facility. We have to have hotels to house those people that are going to come into Richmond for the sports facility. Again, more traffic, more traffic, more traffic. And then we don't even have a proper turning lane from Barnes Mill to Goggins. So you sit and wait if you need to get on Goggins. But can somebody explain that? Can we not, as far as the annexing, why is every piece of property, all of our big farms are being annexed to the city? And then it seems that we have developers from all over the country that are coming in here to develop the land. I don't understand that. There is a law, something that was written many, many years ago, that indicates that as far as the annexation to the city.
People
What
wish
is
to
it?
be annexed into the city for utilities and other things, okay? The property. So I don't see any big problem with annexation if you watch what you're annexing. But I do think we should probably, and I was going to say this before you get up there, one of the things the comprehensive plan does say, and we talk about it all the time, it talks about the character of Richmond, the quality of life, okay? They don't talk about that very much. And I personally think an R1C and an R2 is much. I think if they want to give a much less dense property, because we have to develop it, and you know, I might go with that, like an R1A or something like that, where you can only put one or two houses on an acre. It would decrease the density immensely. Or
subdivision is 5 acres.
yeah, or that. But I don't think that this density is a good way to go. So if you let me, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Let's table it.
I would vote it down.
But I just don't understand that
I
process.
make a motion that we do not approve the zone map amendment for the Hampton 210 LLC property located at Old Town Branch Road. Wait a minute. And we did not approve that because the density is too much for that area. Density means more traffic. It means a lot of things in character Richmond. So I think we ought to not approve this until we can go ahead and have more
Information.
thinking about it, number one, and we could go ahead and make it property less densely developed. So I've got a motion on the floor.
I second.
Dr. Miller, just so that I'm clear, you've made a motion to deny the zone change application.
Yeah, and we have to say a reason. And
Sure.
the reason is it's too dense for that
Okay.
area.
Is there a second for that? Is
Second.
there? Okay.
Two second.
So the motion on the table is to deny the zone change. Commissioner Shu?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Francis?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins? Commissioner Miles?
Yes.
Commissioner Sell?
Yes.
It's denied.
Thank you all for bringing up all that.
I would still like to add something if I could. The gentleman over here behind me said that, you know, we don't want Richmond to grow. We do want Richmond to grow. But I live in Old Town Estates. I've worked for over 20 years on Hampton Way. I drive it every day. I came home in an ice storm. Hampton Way was completely blocked, like sat there for 30 minutes. Get to that tunnel, the tunnel, there was a wreck. It was completely blocked. We have a lot of elderly people, retired people, people with health conditions like Vernon and myself that live in our neighborhood. If we'd have needed an ambulance, gotten one, it wouldn't have happened. And on top of that, we farm on our property. We farm honeybees, we farm blackberries, we farm our property. That's all this development, that's not good for honeybees. It's not good for all these things. It has to be spaced out more, if at all. Has to be.
And I want to say something. I'd like to say something too. Everybody keeps harping about the comprehensive plan. This is not a one-sided deal. You all can be involved with this too. You know, be part of the historic society, things like that. And actually, we have to do these things every few years. We have to go back and look at it. Is it following it? Do we need to change this or do that? Here's your all's chance to be involved. Be involved. And that's it, because I think it will help everybody.
Yeah,
So please do it.
it's your community,
Yeah.
okay?
We don't get paid for this job. And believe me, tonight, we don't want it, But it's one of these things that we do. We do want to take care of, because we live here too. And so, we live the same thing you're living. I realize you are living it harder because you're right there at ground zero. But, we do mean the best.
I want to clear something up.
Step up to the mic.
Step up.
Let me clear up something.
Excuse me.
If they put that plat map back up there, can you? A lot of people here are concerned about that little dog leg that goes down to Adams Hill Drive, because they think that people in this new subdivision is going to come down through there, take a left and come around through the subdivision of Old Town Estates. I thought the same thing, but I just talked to this gentleman. If you look at that plat map, you'll find that 50-foot dog leg ends in one of the lots in that subdivision. It ends there. It does not come into the subdivision. So Joe was up here. Joe lives on one side of that street. I live on the other. Everybody thought there's going to be a street into the subdivision. On the plat map, it's not. And when I asked this gentleman that represented them, it's not. If you look there, you'll see the one coming out on the left, the little dog leg there that comes down to Adams Hill Drive. You see where it ends at the subdivision, in one of the lots. So if you're worried about people coming back through there, they'll only be one lot.
With all due respect, the item is denied and we've moved on.
Yeah, it's over.
With
Yes,
all due
sir.
respect, the item is denied and it's, no.
Yeah.
I agree. Director's report.
Yeah.
Eugene, do you have any other business?
Directors, she's gonna have the director's report, please.
I have no report.
Any other business?
No,
I can't
sir.
believe that, no report.
Any other business?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
That was great.
So you think that was an okay thing?
Yeah, I snap 5 or 6 of them down there.
Well, the fact that we can